Hidden in the streets of Mayfair is a fascinating tube station. Now, it's been shut for very many years, but it still has some absolutely amazing secrets to share with us. Down Street Station, or what's left of it, is just off Piccadilly in wealthy Mayfair. This old tube map from 1908 shows the Underground as it began to spread out. At that time, all the lines were privately run. Down Street opened in 1907 as a stop on the Great Northern, Piccadilly and Brompton Railway. Its distinctive glazed tile facade marks it as the work of a young architect called Leslie Green. Aged only 29, he began working as a station architect, but died just 4 years later. In that short time, he created what many consider to be the template look for an underground station. A topic in which my guide, London Transport Museum historian Siddy Holloway, is an expert. Hey Siddy,
hello Tim, how are you?
I'm great, thanks.
Yep.
Now, this behind us, this is Down Street Station, isn't it?
Sure
it's
is.
an absolute iconic example of Leslie Green's architecture.
Down Street's a little bit unusual, but what we can see on the outside is a very typical Leslie Green station. So he was very young, he also died very young, unfortunately, but he did design around 50 stations on the current Bakerloo, Northern and Piccadilly lines, and Down Street Station is an excellent example.
Green's brief was that his station designs had to be distinctive, cheap and quick to build. It was a really innovative structure, wasn't it, in its time?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So they're all built with a steel frame structure, which at the time, which in 1903, was a brand new technology over from America. But also they were built with a flat roof, so they could basically sell the air rights and make some profit out of buildings on top of these stations.
Selling airspace was a business concept more common in America than Britain. And when it came to aesthetic inspiration, Leslie Green looked to French Art Nouveau.
You've got these very iconic semicircular windows, and you see those ornate things over there, those are cartouches, which is quite emblematic of Art Nouveau architecture and something that Leslie Green used in many of his designs.
The bright red, or this kind of oxblood red that you see in front of us, that's quite unusual, isn't it?
It was. We don't really know why he chose red, but you can surmise that it was to indicate to the people of London that this was something to stop and take notice of. They were really the first example of a corporate identity in Britain at the time. You know, you'd see that building and you'd see 50 of those buildings across London. It would just signify something brand new and exciting.
There are 40 disused underground stations in London. Down Street is sometimes open for public tours, and tickets are in high demand. So I'm very excited to be getting this VIP tour today. Well, this is not what you expect inside a tube station. Stations like Down Street boasted American Otis lifts. They had an innovative safety brake to stop the lift falling down the shaft if the cable snapped. Alas, those lifts have long gone, so we're taking the stairs. And all the way down is more evidence of well-thought-out design. And these tiles here, they look familiar to me. Are these the same red as the one we saw outside?
Well, they are very similar, you're right, and they do look like the sort of terracotta oxblood ones outside, but they're a slightly darker colour, and this is the signature colour of Down Street Station. So this is the colour that Leslie Green chose for this particular site.
You say he chose them for this site. What about other sites? Different colours, different places?
Always different colours, different places. So you have to remember in Edwardian times, a lot of people were illiterate. So they couldn't read what station to get off at. So one of the ways to combat this was to put a different colour scheme on each station. And so that's how you'd recognise, you'd go, I need to get off at the red station, for example, rather than the blue or the green.
Leslie Green used tin-glazed or faience tile cladding throughout his stations for a clean, modern look. These on the stairwell are made by a London company who left a cheeky maker's mark. There are so few of these named tiles left, almost none out in public, and just a very small handful left in some of these hidden London spaces. I love rooting around in here, and next, City's going to take me deep beneath the streets of Mayfair as the real revelations lie further underground. Back at the derelict Down Street tube station, tucked down a side street near Piccadilly Circus, City Holloway is showing me the remains of what was once a super modern underground.
Welcome to the emergency staircase.
Sadly, much of what's here is in pretty poor condition. And that's because Down Street was closed in 1932, because it wasn't profitable. Numbers were reckoned at just over 1 million passengers a year, compared to the 24 million of nearby Piccadilly Circus. So, after just 25 years of service, it was shut down and largely forgotten. There we go. Wow!
Yeah.
Look at this. I was seeing some evidence, though, that perhaps all is not quite you might expect it to see as a normal underground station.
Well, exactly. You're starting to see where it differs from a regular Leslie Green station.
In 1939, at the start of the Second World War, the powers that be realised they had a ready-made super-deep bunker in the heart of London. So, having stood empty for 9 years, Down Street was taken over by the Railway Executive Committee, a group of powerful railway bosses who coordinated military and civilian rail travel across Britain. They called this new office the Dungeon.
They had to be somewhere centrally located because they needed over 50 telephone lines in order to be able to run the nation's network. They needed to be very close to the seat of power, so they needed to be close to the government in order to make those decisions. And also it needed to be secret. You don't want lots of people knowing where you're running the nation's railways from. And so this place was really ideal for the fact that most people had forgotten it was here.
Wow, and so who knew this was being done, this stuff?
Oh, hardly anyone. Only the top executives and those who've been chosen to work and live down here, because this was a 24-hour facility and people lived down here as well as worked.
The deeper we go, the more it looks like a James Bond film, especially as we reach the old platform 26 metres below ground. The station might be abandoned, but it's still part of the Piccadilly line. So that there are the live running tracks, and we're down here at platform level.
Exactly. That's why we keep it so dark down here, so the passengers on the Piccadilly line don't notice that there's a station here that's closed.
We've got to switch our torches off, so we don't blind the drivers. I'll tell you, it's a really eerie feeling hearing a train racing towards you in the dark.
Pretty cool.
That's really very cool indeed, and slightly terrifying, standing in this kind of semi-darkness as the train rushes past on the Piccadilly line.
It certainly feels like a different world down here.
It does. Along most of the platform, we're separated from the trains by a wall. This was built to create a secret meeting room for the politicians and rail executives. While just inches away, oblivious passengers rushed past.
This is the curve of the platform, so you can see the tunnel just kind of emerging here. And normally, if you'd be a passenger, this would be approximately where your yellow line would be.
These were very difficult conditions, but being underground, protected by gas-proof doors and a steel frame station, well, that was better than the daily threat of being bombed. But embossed wallpaper on the walls and a rare photograph of the executive mess room shows that the top brass made every effort to carry on as normal. It does look just like a dining car, of course. I mean, even with a kind of a railway clock on the wall as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, they got the experts that fit out these railway carriages, people very used to working in very confined spaces, and they got them to decorate the entire facility. So the wallpaper would have been their idea. And even when you wanted to call the steward, just look over there.
Oh, wow. Is that a little bell push?
Yes, exactly.
I mean, it's really very bizarre. of these narrow corridors, and we're currently standing on the platforms. Everything's been sandwiched in, like a whole office, a whole place to live and work and eat on a tube station platform. It's really very odd. And Down Street headquarters has one last wartime secret to reveal.
What is this?
Well, this corridor has always been a bit of a mystery. For a long time, it was believed this was only a ventilation shaft for the Piccadilly line.
You can feel the kind of all that
Exactly,
air
you can
rushing
sort of
through
see.
now.
It's quite cool in here, isn't it? However, in the last 2 years, we've been able to discover that this particular tunnel was actually converted into a private bunker for Winston Churchill himself.
Gosh, the Winston Churchill. I mean, do we have evidence he stayed down here?
We know he came to the main part of it as a guest of the Railway Executive Committee. He stayed with them, basically camping on one of their office floors for quite a few nights during the Blitz. But he liked it so much that he asked for them to build a special accommodation for him in this particular tunnel. However, we don't know whether he himself used it or whether he gave it to someone he thought was important enough to be given this kind of special treatment, basically.
Well, that's one secret still to find out about this incredible network of tunnels.
Exactly.
This secret station has been a revelation. It's an amazing time capsule of 20th century history, hidden under the streets of London.
The only tricky part about visiting these stations is climbing up the stairs after we've been round.
Exactly how many steps are there all the way up?
123 at this station.
It feels like a lot more.